guys! So in today's video for Beauty University, we're going to be covering the basics of eyeshadow. So I'm going to be walking you through like the different parts of the eye, what we call them, and how we're going to kind of accent them and work with them to create a good eye look with different eyeshadows. I'm going to show you the basics of the brushes that I'm using and stuff like that. So really that's all I have to say. Let's get right on into it. So I went ahead and zoomed you guys in just so you can kind of get comfy with my face here because we're going to be here for a while. I did already go ahead and do my face makeup and all the rest of my makeup off camera just because that way as soon as this eye look is finished, the whole look is finished and you can kind of see how it ties the look together. So all my face makeup is done. Obviously I have my lip gloss on and I've done my eyebrows, so all that's left to do is whatever is going on my eyes today. Just for your information, I will be using a couple shades from probably 3 different palettes. I only put 3 in front of me, so we'll see which ones I end up using, but I am using the Anastasia Beverly Hills Artist Palette, the Anastasia Beverly Hills Shadow Couture World Traveler Palette, and the Morphe Jaclyn Hill Favorites Palette, which is too big for the camera right now, but those are the ones that I'm using. Those are just the ones that I reach for the most for everyday looks like this one is going to be, so I thought that they were definitely the best ones to show you guys just because, like I said, they're the ones that I would use for this the most. So basically what I'm going to be doing in this little tutorial thing is I'm going to be doing my eye makeup and showing you the whole process and, you know, kind of the steps that I go through to do my eye makeup. And I'm going to be showing you guys really basic things about how to apply eye makeup. So I'm going to be talking about the different parts of the eye and the brushes that I'm using, but I'm just going to do it as like a walkthrough and explain as I go. So if that makes sense, that's how we're going to do this. So let's go ahead and get started with the look. So the very first step in any eye look is to prime your eyelids. Now there are a lot of different kinds of primers and things to use depending on what kind of eye look you're doing, but for just an everyday eye look, I really like to use something that will conceal the veins and stuff like that on my eyes if there's any discoloration or anything like that. So I've been using the NYX Above and Beyond Full Coverage Concealer in the shade CJ10 Yellow. So it's just a little concealer pot like this. A lot of people use the MAC paint pots as well. I just don't have those, but there's a lot of different ways you can prime your eyes. But like I said, for a basic everyday eye look, I like to just take a concealer like this or even some of my regular face concealer and just use that to prime my lids. So I'm going to do that with my ring fingers. Always use your ring fingers when working with your eyes just because the skin around your eyes is so delicate and your ring finger is your most delicate finger, so it will give the lightest touch and it will still do the job without damaging the skin around your eyes. Some people do use a brush sometimes when they're applying their eye primer, but I personally find it's just easier to use my ring fingers. I find that that gives me the best application, I have the most control, and I honestly don't see a problem with using my fingers, so why not use the tools God gave you? So the very first color I'm going to be placing on my eyes is something called a transition shade. And a transition shade does exactly what it sounds like it does. It helps with the transition from the darker colors that are in your crease to the lighter colors that are going to go like right under the brow bone or maybe even on the lid. It kind of helps to just blend everything together. A lot of people might skip this step and just say work really well with your blending, but I find that using a transition shade, the more shades you use, the easier it is to blend things. So using a transition shade is really helpful. Really anything fluffy is going to get the job done when you're working with a color that is specifically made to blend. So a couple of my favorites are the Ego Tools Highlight Brush. It's a little mini eye brush from like a travel set and it's got a really nice fluffy tip. There is the Eye Contour Brush, which I've talked about before. This is from mymakeupbrushset.com and it's just kind of a flat but still fluffy brush. This one's really interesting and it's one of my favorites. Then of course there is the famous MAC 217 brush, which I just recently got for my birthday, so I've just recently been trying it out and I really like how it works for like transition and crease shades. And then finally another one of my favorites is the fluffy end of the brush that comes with the Anastasia Beverly Hills palettes. I'm using the one from the Shadow Couture palette, but it's the exact same as the other one as well. When choosing a transition shade, you really don't want it to be too light or too dark. You want it to be fairly close to your skin tone or something that's kind of in the middle like that so as not to be too far on one end or the other of the spectrum. You want it to be in the middle to be that transition between the darker shades and the lighter shades to really offer that help with the blending. The shade that I'm using today is Soft Peach from the Anastasia Beverly Hills Shadow Couture World Traveler palette. So I'm just going to be taking the fluffy end of the brush that came with the palette and I'm going to be dipping it in that Soft Peach shade. And your transition shade is going to go in sort of what we call the crease area. The crease is when you open your eye like that, do you see like where it folds there? The crease is the natural like crease or shadow area of your eyelid, which basically is just, if you feel on your eyelid right above where your eyeball is, that's where the crease is. If you go anywhere above that, that is usually where we would consider your brow bone, and if you go anywhere below, that is part of the lid. So I'm just going to work this transition shade into my crease area, working almost up onto the brow bone area. It's going to be in my upper crease, so. Honestly, this shade is fairly close to my natural shade, or my like natural skin color, so it won't show up too much, but you can see a little bit of the difference. And I'm just going to do the same thing on the other eye. Now the thing about a transition shade is while you do usually put it first, you may come back later and put it in again just to assist with the blending process. Like I said, it's one of those colors that it might not show up really, but it's definitely there to help blend, and you will notice a difference using it and not using it, even if you don't see the shade in the end product. So the next shade that I'm going to go for is my crease shade. Now this is not the order that you have to follow exactly. The transition shade usually I do always do first, but the other kinds I can kind of switch them up depending on the kind of look that I'm doing, how much sparkle is going to be in it and stuff like that. But today I'm going to just be starting with my crease right after my transition shade. Crease brushes are fairly similar to transition shade brushes just because they do generally go in a fairly similar area. I use all of the brushes that I showed you for transition shades for crease shades also, just depending on what looks I'm doing and how precise I want it to be. But there is also another brush that I will use for my crease that I did not show you before. This is the Sigma E44 Firm Blender brush, and it is just exactly how it says. It is a firm, kind of stiff-ended brush, but it is perfect for blending. It is still very fluffy, but it just is very good at keeping its shape, which helps to get a really precise crease shade, especially when you're working with slightly darker colors. This is a great brush for that. For me personally today, I'm going to be starting with the EcoTools highlight brush and just going in with the shade Morocco from this same palette. And I'm going to be placing that in my crease area, which like I said is, if you feel on your eyelid, right above where your eyeball is, that's where the start of the crease is. So I'm just going to be putting that kind of almost exactly where I put my transition shade, just a little bit tighter on the inside. You can kind of see how this follows the natural shadow of my eyelid. This is naturally where a shadow would be, and it is creating that very defined crease. So I'm just going to take the same shade and do the exact same thing on the other side as well. So as you can see, that was a very warm color to be putting in my crease. You can totally use warm colors, I'm not saying you can't, but it's a little too light and a little too orange for me to leave it this way, so I am actually going to add a second crease color with a different brush. With that Sigma E44 blending brush that I was telling you guys about, I'm going to be taking this shade from the Jaclyn Hill Favorites palette. It is just a nice dark brown shade, and I'm only taking a very little amount of this, but I'm taking it on that little bit more precise brush, and I'm going to be placing that exactly in my crease. Again, the more colors you use, the better things are going to blend, so the fact that I have two other shades already on my lid is really going to help this look blend. Adding the extra colors and the extra steps seems like a bother, but it really adds a lot of depth and dimension to your eye look. So having more than one color in the crease and as your transition shades and stuff is really, really going to help out the blending process and just help it to look really deep and three-dimensional. So now that I have my crease shades in that crease area, I'm going to go back with my transition shade, which was Soft Peach from the Anastasia Beverly Hills Shadow Couture palette, and I'm just going to be taking that same brush and going over my transition area again, just to kind of help blend everything out. I don't want there to be any harsh lines. Blending is definitely key when working with eye makeup of any kind. I always like my looks to look kind of soft and very blended in the crease area, so this is definitely a huge step for me. So I don't know how well you guys can see it from your view of me through the camera, but that adding all those different colors definitely helped with the dimension. It helped with the blending. Everything looks very smooth, but you can still pick out the individual colors if you look hard enough. So this is a look that I really, really love as far as where the things are in my crease and the colors that I use. So definitely one of my favorite ways to do my eyes. Now we're going to go in with a lid shade, which is super exciting for me because the Shadow Couture palette has a really, really great one. You can totally use whatever lid shade you want with this look, or with any look really. I mean, this isn't limited to just these colors. This is just showing the basic concepts of like where you put things on your eye, stuff like that. Today on my mobile lid, which is the lid area that you would basically just call your regular eyelid, anything under the crease area right here is the mobile lid. And so what I'm going to be using for that is the shade Pink Champagne from the Shadow Couture palette. It is this gorgeous, very, very shimmery, glittery, pink champagne-y colored shade. Now, lid brushes are many and varied. There are so many different kinds, and honestly, you really can't go wrong with how you apply your lid shade as long as you're using the right one for the specific shadow that you're working with. This is oftentimes a personal preference thing. Sometimes it has to do with like the texture of the shadow, what kind of shadow it is, if it's like a powder, if it's a cream, stuff like that. But I'm going to show you guys some of my favorite lid brushes. My absolute favorite lid brush for creams, which is anything cream-like also, so like the ColourPop Super Shock shadows, I definitely use this with as well. This is the Sigma E58 Cream Color Brush, and it's just a flat shader brush. It's very long and it works perfectly with anything that's a cream consistency. Another great lid brush that's just really great for the size is the Sigma E59 Wide Shader Brush. It is very huge and fluffy, and it's really good at putting color all over the lid. My makeup brush set, which I've already told you guys about and I will have linked down below, has a bunch of really good fluffy eyelid brushes. This is really great for anything that is matte specifically, or if you just want a subtle wash of color. If you really want to pack a punch with your eyeshadows though, my personal favorite are any kind of flat shader brushes. So you see how these are flat and then they are like wide when you lay them out. These are from my makeup brush set, and specifically I like to use these with colors that I'm really trying to concentrate on the lid and be very precise. Usually these will have a lot of sparkle in them just because I like sparkle on my eyelids, but definitely these are some great ones to use on your lids for any shade. So today I'm going to use the short eyeshadow brush from my makeup brush set, and I'm just going to dip it in that Pink Champagne shade, and we're going to start placing it all over the mobile lid. I'm going to start by patting just because that tends to give a better color payoff when working with glitters, and then I'm going to pull my eyelid out and work in a sweeping motion to make sure it gets into all those little crevices of my eyelid. This shade gives me goosebumps. I love it so much. It's so pretty. Like, can we talk about that glitter? Look at that. This is an eyeshadow. This isn't even a glitter. So I'm just going to do the same thing on the other lid as well. Another secret about lid shades is if you really want a good color payoff, especially with cream eyeshadows or something that's got like a very creamy consistency, even if it's just like a powder shadow that's got a very nice creamy texture, you can also use your fingers to apply them onto your eyelid. So sometimes I will take my fingers afterwards even and just go in and really enhance that eye color. At this point in time, if you're not going back in with your transition shade, you can go in with just a regular blending brush. My absolute favorite one is from Soho, which is a brand that they sell at Walgreens. So this is not expensive. It's not something you have to go out and spend a ton of money on, but it is definitely my favorite blending brush of all time. I'm going to use it with absolutely no shadow on it. It's completely clean, and I'm just going to be taking it and running it through the crease area just to make sure that those colors are blending well with each other and with the lid shade as well. So the next thing we're going to work on is highlighting. Now, highlighting on your eyelids is a little bit different than doing it on your face, but only because of where you're going to be putting it, because it's not necessarily a place that you would expect. The first place you definitely would expect. It's right underneath your eyebrows. It is called your brow bone, and you see how it's already naturally lighter than the rest of my eye look? That's how you know that it's going to be highlighted. It is a very prominent part of your face. It looks very pretty when it's highlighted, and you can do this in so many different ways. If you prefer a matte highlight, one of my absolute favorites is the highlight shade from the Kathleen Lights ColourPop quad, but I usually prefer something a little bit shimmery, so what I'm going to be using today is the very top lightest shade in the Jaclyn Hill Favorites palette from Morphe, and I'm taking this on this is a brush from my makeup brush set, and it is an angled eyeshadow brush, and so I'm just going to dip it in here and place that on my brow bone. Oh, do you see how pretty that is when it's all highlighted, and then I feel like it blends so well with the rest of the look. It's just so pretty. The next place on your eyes that you pretty much always highlight is the inner corner of your eye, which is like right here. So I'm just going to take a little bit more of that shade on the same brush and dot it on the inner corner of my eye. If you were to highlight any other place on the eye, sometimes people would do it right on the center of the lid where kind of your eyeball protrudes out, if that makes any sense. A lot of people will highlight there, but personally, since I have so much sparkle on my lid already, I didn't feel like it was necessary. That is just kind of a technique some people use to kind of make the sparkles on the eyelids really pop. But other than that, you are completely done with your eyeshadow look. Now we can move on to kind of the rest of the look. I'm not going to show you guys the process of me applying my eyeliner just because that will have its own video a little bit later. Stay tuned for that one in Beauty University, but today I'm just going to be doing it off camera and then I'll show you guys the finished look. Alright guys, so this is the finished eye look with the mascara and the eyeliner and everything. I really hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial and kind of learning about the different parts of the eye and the kinds of brushes that I use for different things. Obviously this is not like a completely exhaustive list of like everything that I've ever used on my eye or anything like that, but this is definitely a great start in the right direction if you're first starting out in makeup and learning how to do basic eye things. This is a step towards learning, you know, the different parts of the eye and how to place things properly and create the right shadows and everything. So you definitely learned a lot today, I hope. If you did, be sure to give me a big thumbs up and comment down below what you're thinking of Beauty University so far. As always, if you recreate this look or use this technique or any of the things that I showed you in any of your own makeup looks, then be sure to hashtag TaylorBrynBeauty, TaylorBrynBeautyU, and Beauty University. You can use any of those 3 hashtags and I will be checking out your guys' pictures. Thank you so much for watching today, and also special thanks to my half cameraman, NerdTube Games, or my nephew Abraham. Here, he's gonna come up on screen here.
Hey.
Sup?
Sup.
But anyway, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you're having a great time at Beauty University so far, and I can't wait to see you next time. Love you. Bye.